What is up, YouTube? So we're going to do a video on general maintenance on a 2022 Honda Rubicon and a 2022 Honda Rancher, 2023 Honda Rubicon. I did do valve adjustments on the Rubicon. Really didn't need it. I'll get into that here in a second. I'll kind of point out the things you need to do. There's plenty of other YouTube videos of the full actual valve adjustment. So some general maintenance tips that I like to do is I like to obviously check brake wear, make sure everything's looking okay up in here, that there's no real play in anything, the wheel bearings are good, the boots aren't ripped anywhere. Honda makes it really easy. You can look in the service manual. I'll try my best to show you. There's that wear indicator right there for your brakes, and then that little piece of metal that sticks up, it's casted in there, that shows you when that indicator passes into or touches that lifted metal. It means your brake pads need to be changed. So Honda does a great job at letting you see that. So you can always pop the tires off and see where your wear indicators are at for your brake pads. And it all varies depending if you ride in mud more or things like that. It's harder on your brakes. Always inspect the rotor. And then the rear brakes are the same way. You can see there's an arrow right there. And then up top, where those two little boots are, there's your indicator. So as you can see, the rear brake pads have quite a bit of life left in them. The front brake pads probably in the next 6 months or so. So that's how you can check that on your brakes. And then, like I said, I check the bushings, the ball joints, tie rod ends, the boots to make sure there's no rips in them. You get a lot of dirt and stuff built up in here, so I kind of clean that out every couple months. That way, again, it's not riding on your boots and eats them up. It takes a couple minutes, saves you from doing that. So that's one of the general maintenance things. Gear oil I like doing once a year, and it's pretty self-explanatory. That right there is your fill hole and or indicator hole. Gear oil level should be right up there. Your drain plug for the gear oil's right underneath. It's a 10 millimeter. It's a 17 millimeter, and the rear holds very little. I think it's like 5 ounces, and the front's 11. Same deal with the front. So I like doing the gear oil. Now the Rancher had a little bit of water in the gear oil, not a lot. Just changed the color of the gear oil a little bit. I've had that with some other ATVs. The Rubicon was good. It had nothing in it. So on to other general maintenance things. The air cleaner's in here. It's very simple. You pop these, this comes out, Phillips screwdriver, whole air filter comes out. You remove the foam from the steel canister. Mine, I don't need to change quite as much because I do a lot of the leading in all of our rides. Hers was completely filthy. I don't know if it's actually in the trash can or not. So it's in the big trash can. Yeah, as you can see, hers is disgusting. We do a lot of anthracite coal riding, so those are just some of the things that can obviously happen. So you want to keep up on that stuff. Now onto the valve adjustments and things like that. The reason why I wanted to check the valve adjustment on this is it was starting hard, and I know sometimes you can hear the valves when they're out of adjustment. One of the things I read is if the valves are out of adjustment, it does tend to start hard. So while I was doing the valve adjustments, I also changed the spark plug. I get all my parts on motorsports.com. They have all the OEM parts for every single part on both these machines. And then there's blow up part diagrams, and you can pick what you want. So like I get the O-rings for the oil filter housing. I have a couple replacement springs in case the spring tends to wear on the where it rests on the oil filter. Get my oil filters from there, so on and so forth. So long story short, it actually was a plug that was causing it to start hard, and both of the ATV's plugs were very rich. As you can see, it is running rich. Not bad, but rich. And the Rubicon was a little bit worse. This was a Rubicon. If it focuses in there. So it's definitely rich. Once I popped a new plug in, I actually started a lot easier, so I didn't need to rip apart half the four-wheeler to do the valve adjustments. So there's many different ways to do valve adjustments. Now, I did the more take things apart way. So underneath this ACU, you just bend these back. The ECU will slide out underneath. Right here is a 10 millimeter bolt that comes out. You want to unclip your this is for your fuel pump. You want to unclip that. You want to take this little line off, fuel return or breather of some sort, I can't remember. Probably a breather. You want to be very careful. This is plastic. You don't want to snap that off or you'll need a whole new fuel pump. And then right here is your fuel line. You want to push those tabs in, pull this rubber grommet back. That'll pop out. Fuel will come out. Not a lot, but it will come out. And then you want to disconnect your spark plug wire, and that guy right there is your coolant temperature sensor, I believe. So you want to take that out, and then this whole thing will slide out of the way, exposing, and then your one bolt here is for the gas tank. So once that slides out of the way, the next thing you need to do is remove the gas tank. Now, many YouTube videos, they just have you pop this body pin out, this body pin out, that body pin out, and one over there. You take the gas cap off, and it uses Torx bit for the two fuel mounting bolts here and here. I can't remember. I think it's like a 22 or 32. And then you can pull the fuel tank out. Now, I took the rack off and this whole black centerpiece off. The reason I did that is I wanted to look at the radiator, make sure that it wasn't got a lot of debris in it or mud or things of that nature, because that'll obviously create cooling problems. So I took it the extra step further to take the top of the rack off and this. So once you have your fuel tank off, you can see down at the top of the engine, there's two side holes. One on this side, one on this side. I believe they're 22 or 24 millimeter. You take them off and then you can see the rockers to do your valve adjustment. Now, the one thing that I did not see on YouTube was most of the people that were doing valve adjustments, they had the foot shift manual. I do not have that. So on those, they would put it in fifth gear and then roll the four-wheeler forward to get the piston to top dead center. DCT, you can't do that. So this is a little bit more involved. You can get away with doing it without taking this section of plastics off. I did not want to do that and try to squeeze in there. So this is a 6 Allen right here. That is your sight hole. In there you will see there's a little indicator mark right in the center. When it hits the T, it's at top dead center. You can check that by seeing if the pistons, you can see the piston through the spark plug hole, and your rocker should have some play to them, okay? Once that's out, there's a cover. I don't know where my light's at. For the DCT models, you have to take that cover off. I don't know what to do with my light. Do my best to point it out. DCT models, you have to take this cover off. You can see the one bolt right there. there is 3 bolts, and that cover comes off. Behind that cover is a crank bolt, and you can get on the crank bolt and you can rotate the motor that way until those top dead center mark lines up with that center mark on the indicator hole. Once you're there, you can set your valve adjustments. It's 6 thousandths, 9 thousandths of an inch. You want an angled feeler gauge, which should be right here. Just easier to get in. So, and those are angled out so you can get in there better. And then you get on with a 10 millimeter wrench. You loosen the nut on the rocker. You put your feeler gauge in there, and then you use a flathead screwdriver, and you will tighten it down until there's some resistance. You leave the flathead in there, and then you tighten it down with a 10 millimeter and repeat on the other side. It's 6 thousandths for intake, 9 thousandths for exhaust. It is also in your owner's manual, also your spark plug gap. So that's some general maintenance, but my valves, the exhaust valve was a little bit out of adjustment. The intake valve was still good. Obviously, I got the valves adjusted after the, I had the dealer do it after the initial break-in period, but I decided to do it since. So probably put 1,000 miles on since the initial 100 mile. It was a little after 100 miles I took it in, and they're barely were out of adjustment. Now, obviously, it probably changes due to how you ride and things of that nature. So that's a general overview on how you would do your valve adjustments. There's much more detailed videos on it. Like I said, I just found taking the footwell plastics off was much easier to get in there and access that crank bolt port in there. So, and then just make sure you clean up wherever you're removing around the engine so you don't get dust and debris in there. And yeah, so that's pretty much as much general maintenance as I go around and look through on these machines. I check the boots, I check the brake wear, indicators, I check all the ball joints, tie rod ends, plug, air filter. There's a little plastic like dust collector or something on the bottom. I don't know what the proper name is on the bottom of the air filter box. I clean that out every so often, and you know, and your oil filter changes are right here, oil fill hole, and then your drain plugs underneath. So yeah, that's pretty much a general maintenance. I like doing this once a year. I'll do, after finding how foul the spark plugs were, I will definitely do plugs once a year. I thought that it would not require spark plugs as much due to it being fuel injected, but however, I have the fuel mapping on these things. I don't know, must be rich, more of a rich fuel map. So yeah, so I like doing the plugs, the air filters. I'll check periodically, not once a year. I'll definitely check those a little bit more. The brakes I check every 6 months to once a year. Now that they're getting close to, the front brakes are getting closer to the wear indicator mark, I'll check them a little bit more periodically. Valve adjustments, I'm not really sure. I'm going to probably surmise maybe 2,000 miles. You might need them. Again, that differs per machine. So yeah, and then I just do a general check over everything. So that is how you do a lot of your maintenance. Now I do have LED lights coming for the front. Their light bars are on back order. I did end up putting the LED third light in, as you can see. So I'll have all LED lights up front, but I did put the LED bulb up in the front because that came before the other ones were able to get ordered. So so yeah, that's pretty much how you do general maintenance on a Rubicon or a Rancher. I like the fact that Honda ends up putting the wear mark indicators on the brake pads, so I'd probably say maybe 6 months, year tops, we'll have to do brake pads on the fronts. I didn't check the Rubicons yet, but I'm going to say they're around the same. So I will do a video on how to do the brake pads.
I think they're pretty self-explanatory. And by keeping up with the brake pads, you'll save yourself from doing rotors in the long, excuse me, in the long run. So I hope this video helps. I will also do a spark arrestor clean out. Book says you got to do it, I forget, every 100 hours or so. But you take this bolt out here, plug the back of the tailpipe, you rev it 20 times, it blows all the crud out of there. You know, whatever, if it helps, it helps. It's like a 2-minute thing, so I tend to try to follow what the books say. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for general maintenance on both these machines. Hope this helps someone. Like I said, there's a lot more in depth where they actually show you how to take apart and do the valve adjustments and whatnot, but that's pretty much the ins and outs of doing the valve adjustments. So till next time.